Okay, so I waited a minute to talk about this because I wanted to see if Kyrie would change his mind, but Steve Nash just said that they expect to not see Kyrie in home games this year. So there you go. The first thing I think about is the potential for injuries. I mean, KD had a hamstring thing as well as a thigh thing that kept him out of a lot of time last season. And of course, there's always the possibility of the Achilles giving him some sort of problem. He also had that foot injury in OKC a while back. Harden has been very durable, but he also had a hamstring thing this previous year. And Kyrie has always had some injury thing, whether it's a shoulder or just a random assortment of lower body injuries. And if he's already going to miss half the season, yeah, you could still be fine because it's still three dudes. But there is a world in which that goes in a really bad direction for them. Kind of similar to what happened to the Lakers this previous season. So that's number one. As far as the roster itself, I mean, I feel like there's still enough shooting on the team with Patty Mills and Joe Harris and Blake, who's gotten better from three, and LaMarcus, who's a shooter, if he's going to be able to play like that. We hope with his health, of course, to where defenses are still going to have a very difficult time defending this team, even if Kyrie is playing half the season. That's assuming the injury stuff doesn't go super bad. I have seen it talked about on the internet a little bit, the idea of trading Kyrie. I don't think that's going to happen. If it does, then of course I'll talk about it, but I would just say color me shocked if the Nets were seriously considering trading Kyrie. To think about the postseason, can they beat the Bucks with Kyrie playing half of a playoff series? If the Sixers get their Ben Simmons stuff straightened out, whether that's him coming back, seems unlikely, very unlikely, or they trade him for something and they can go on a run. Gotta account for Miami as well. Can the Hawks continue their momentum from this previous season? Funny enough, I saw something on Reddit where someone said the Nets should try to get a lower seed so they'll play more road games so then Kyrie can play more in the playoffs. Hey, you know what? Maybe they're right. But to think about a Bucks-Nets series, I mean, obviously you could just say, well, the Nets almost beat them with Harden on the hamstring, missing a bunch of games, and Kyrie with however many games he missed after landing on Giannis's foot, right? But I also feel like the Bucks, in going on that run, figured some things out about themselves, mainly in the half-court offense, mainly with Giannis setting a whole lot more screens for Chris Middleton. And I think they would carry that into a new Nets series, and they'd be a lot better, hopefully. But with all that said, I still think the Nets can beat the Bucks if Kyrie plays half the series. I mean, it's still KD and James Harden, and again, Joe Harris, Patty Mills. They've got a lot of shooting outside of the main three, to where if you're the Bucks, you would want to throw that extra attention to KD and Harden. You'd think you can because Kyrie's only going to play however many games in that series. But then it's like, oh crap, Joe Harris is open. Now, yes, I know how the last Bucks series went for Joe Harris, but you have to assume, that's still a 40+% shooter you're leaving open. But it would give them more luxury to leave guys open like Blake, Millsap, Bruce Brown, James Johnson, Nick Claxton, whoever else. But it would also give the Bucks more options for someone like Drew. Like maybe when Kyrie is playing, Drew just has to be on Kyrie and that's it. But maybe when Kyrie's not out there, you can put Drew on Harden. And I mean, we saw Harden have a tough time with like Lou Dort. And maybe Drew could have a similar impact on him, whereas Drew against Kyrie, who's a little faster, does more off the ball, he'd still be effective, maybe not as effective. I still feel like the only team who could beat the Nets, even with this Kyrie thing, is the Bucks. In the East, I think the Lakers could also beat them with this Kyrie thing. I say that because for the Lakers, well, that's easy. I think they're going to make the finals. And that's the only West team the Nets would play in the playoffs. And for the East, I mean, just look at the teams. Philly, they've still got this mess going on with Ben Simmons. I don't think they can beat the Nets with Simmons, without him. The replacement that they will potentially get is probably not going to be good enough unless they're getting Bradley Beal or Dame. And even then, it's like, are they really still as good as the Nets? There's just so much firepower. It's KD and James Harden with Kyrie playing like half the games, man. I mean, Embiid would have to be Wilt Chamberlain pretty much. And to be fair, the Nets are not exactly equipped to be a great inside defense team or a great defensive team, period. And the other team would be Miami. And sure, I think Miami could definitely give the Nets a headache. And I think there's some interesting possibilities with where do you put Bam in that series? Do you put him on Kevin Durant rather than defending Blake or Aldridge or whoever? But the talent gap would just still be so large. I mean, if you rank the best players in a Nets Heat series. I mean, the first two are definitely Nets. The third is arguable between Jimmy and Kyrie. So at that point, it's like the only way Miami could win that series is if it's just physical as all hell. They're dominating the offensive glass, and they'd have to shoot insanely well from three with Hero and Duncan Robinson around the Bam handoff action, and Lowry and his pull-up threes, and PJ Tucker would also probably have to make a few because you know the Nets would not guard him if he was standing in the corner or whatever. I just think too many things would have to go well for Miami to win that series, even with Kyrie playing, however many games he might play. So that's my take on it all. It'll certainly be an entertaining Nets season.